Yes, very good evening. It's criticalmassradio.co.uk. You listen to Andy Peacher and Kevin Bull. It's the Earth Needs Rebels. Hello, I missed your Friday night. Yeah, hello. The reason I'm waffling on is I can't find the page again, so I'm going to have to ad-lib a little bit. So yeah, I was away for a week, visiting my kids up in Scotland. Yeah, it's very good. Good contact session, and yeah, so I'm back now. I want to talk to you, but not like this. Kev, help! Can you talk for me?
I thought you were.
I've lost the page. I've lost the page.
I thought you were doing a comedy routine, Andy. There.
Not yet.
What's happening to you? Are you having a techno nightmare?
I'm trying to open the blog talk page. Oh, here we go.
Oh, good.
Okay, then I'll just carry on with what I normally do the best.
You go for it, man. You go for it.
Well, yeah, I just want to let everybody know I'm back here. I've had a nice holiday. We've got some serious stuff on the show tonight. We have a family that's been ripped apart by social services in the UK, and you can talk to each and every one of them, or you can even listen to them in a few minutes. But what we'll do first, criticalmassradio.co.uk. We've got a conference on the 24th of November, and here's the details. Yeah, welcome back. It's Andy Peacher and Kevin Bull. It's the Earth Needs Rebel Show. Please visit our website, freethinkingvoice.org, where you'll see all the show archives under the TV and radio tab. Kevin could help me with this one because I'm bad for remembering things. We had a brilliant show yesterday on Orion Talk Radio. We had John Hemmings talking about his October the 26th bill. It was a private member's bill, and he's hoping to change the way that the family courts and the system operates regarding children and families. He's got a very good bill there. We all need to support him by talking to MPs, email them, write to them, and call them. We also had on Christina Tobin. She needs you to go on her website, and that's what I've forgotten. Kevin, do you want to carry on with that?
I will do. Christina, she was lovely to have on the show. A very bubbly person and a real good promoter of the third-party presidential candidates. Christina is running an organisation called Free and Equal. She originally was a former, shall we say, contestant for presidencies. Her father was sort of starting on all of this, and she realised she wanted to do this. Lovely history on the show. And what they're doing on Tuesday, the 23rd, in Chicago at the Hilton, they're having a conference, a debate, the third-party debate with Larry King, and it's going to be a great event. They've got 4 of the key third-party presidency candidates there. They're backed by Ron Paul, certainly on that. They've invited Obama and co. So it's quite a big event. Now, that's going to be on a feed through their website, and that is Free and Equal. And the website is freeandequal.org. So they've been having a problem with mainstream media. They've not been getting the coverage, so they came over to us to get a bit of coverage and a few other people, which we've kindly done for them. And this will mean that they're going to have quite a few media sources putting it out on television and radio, but this is all keyed through freeandequal.org, where they'll have a feed there as well. So that sort of is the picture for that one, Andy, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And guess where you heard it from first? It's from the Earth Needs Rebel Show. Right, we'll bring in our first guest. We've got a whole family on tonight talking about the sad situation with social services where they steal children for no reason. And some people will think, nah, there's got to be something in it. How about a little bruise or a little rash on some little girl, baby B, start again, child B's hand? How about that for a reason to take your child? And guess what? Have a last contact. Why not? Let's have one of them and see how you feel. I mean, it's things social services doesn't understand. they're splitting up the family, they're splitting up, granny and granddad, contact with the child, mum and dad, and they say, oh, let's have a contact. Last one. But by the way, you can bring granny if you want, but if you do, we won't let you bring granny and granddad. Sorry, Luna, I'll waffle on a little bit. You carry on, babes.
Hi. You're all right tonight?
Yeah, but we'll carry on just calling you mum, I think, because that's what we agreed.
Basically, last Monday it was, we had our final goodbye contact. We had a letter a week before that stating that we needed to be there 15 minutes early, which we did. And it turned out that our contact started 10 minutes late, so that was the first setback, but we made that time up at the end of contact. We thoroughly expected grandparents to come in at some point to be allowed in because we invited them, but that never happened. Now, the final goodbye contact in itself was brilliant. My little girl, she was absolute delight, as she always is. Showed attachment to both me and my partner, despite the fact we'd not seen her for 3.5 weeks. So it just goes to show that children can still have attachments, even though they've been ripped apart from their family members. But when we arrived there, we watched whilst turning our phones off, and they weren't allowed to come out at all. We also had the option of having the last contact recorded, which we didn't want that. So what they did was, instead, they put us in a room which had a double-sided window in it, like you was in a police interview room. And there was 2 people sat on the back of that watching the entire contact. Now, we've never had this treatment before until this final goodbye contact. So we didn't let it dwell on us too much because we wanted to enjoy the couple of hours that we had left with our daughter. But they also they took our camera off us and things like that, so we weren't allowed to take pictures, weren't allowed to do anything like that. Which was bitterly disappointing, really, because every other contact we were allowed to take pictures, and all of a sudden we're not allowed. It came to the end of contact, and I broke down basically at the end of that contact. It was absolutely heartbreaking to have to say goodbye. But it's not a goodbye, really, because we will see her again. There's no doubt about that. But at that time, everything seemed so real about what was really, actually hit me what was really happening on that day. And they eventually took her, and then we were told that we had to wait 15 minutes before we could leave the contact centre. And apparently this has been explained in our letter. Now, I have the letter, and I've read it several times before I went to that contact, and it never said anything about staying 15 minutes behind. So we was obviously eager to get out of there. We just wanted to get out. We just wanted to go home and grieve, basically. But they weren't allowed to let us out. So my partner threatened to set the fire alarms off if they didn't let us out. And that's when I shouted to them that, I didn't really shout. I sort of said to them, I'm sure there's a human right that you're breaching here. I'm sure the law states that you cannot detain somebody against their will. And then shortly after that, the manager came out and says, okay, you can let them go. So we were treated like complete and utter criminals, really. We've never been treated that bad before, so why is it all of a sudden changed? Now, I figured it out, really. It took me a while to figure it out, but the guy, the social worker that made the decision on why the grandparents couldn't come and things like that, he actually saw us on the time that we protested a couple of weeks previous to the contact, And I think he basically spat his dummy out. He didn't like the fact that we were protesting, that we were shouting about that we didn't want our daughter to go up for adoption and things, and so he punished us for it in the worst possible way that he could do, and that's by stopping the grandparents from seeing their grandchild. Now, you know, I don't know why, but I'd felt really guilty going into that contact with the grandparents not going in there, because I thought, well, we get to enjoy this couple of hours with her, why can't they? And, you know, I didn't let it like affect my contact too much, but I was evidently sad when I was at that contact. You know, I was trying my best to keep my chin up and enjoy my time with our little daughter, and yeah, it's just they could have made it a lot easier if they'd have just let the grandparents see their grandchild for the last time. You know, why mix it up? Why make us more angry? Why are they pushing us this far? And that's what keeps going through my mind. They could have just left it and says, right, okay, grandparents, you can go to the goodbye contact and we can all spoil her rotten and give her presents and things like that. I mean,
I think mummies, because, you know, they're not human, are they? They don't think about how you're feeling, how granny's feeling, granddad, how dad's feeling. But guess what, you know, that is right what should happen, because it would help you as a family to grieve a little bit more easier if we've seen child B, if we could say goodbye in a dignified, proper way, like you said, spoil her rotten, but to not do that. You know, we need to fight these people, and we need to put in complaint after complaint, and protest after protest. Carry on, Mum.
Yeah, the problem with that, though, Andy, is the fact that they're making a worse reputation out of themselves by doing that. You know, why do they keep doing it when they know that it's just going to anger people and it's just going to give them an even worse reputation than they've already got?
Yeah, I think Kev wants a question, but I think also he might answer that point.
Yes, there's two sides to this, Mom. First of all, we did do an early show in the US with you. Thank you very much for that, and with Mara as well. And what came out during that is, and I'm being very careful with protecting your identities totally so we can do this, that within the order that a veiled contact from the judge, it said that basically the local authority may provide contact or worse to that effect.
No, actually, it was in the paperwork. It was that the parents may invite the grandparents. It says nothing about the local authority.
Right. So the parents may. So the judge is inviting you to say you may invite the grandparents. If that is the case, that is a clear order entitling the grandparents to see the children. Now, what the difference in legal language is, an order saying may is only made because they can't order will. They can't order the grandparents to see. It's not for the social services to choose whether the grandparents avail the final contact. It is availing it so that the grandparents can choose whether to or not. So what we're dealing with, I just want you to know this, is a complete contempt of the court. We'll deal with that after the show.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that from the moment.
Yeah, you are right, Mom. The other side of it, why did they do it? Absolute power and a situation where they can't be held accountable easily, but we'll try and do something with this after the show. We'll talk after the show to try and correct this situation. Anyway, carry on, Mum, please, with what you're saying. It's very informative to everyone. Thank you.
Right, where was I?
To push people to get out of the room.
What?
You have to threaten to
Oh, yeah,
fire alarm out of the room.
Yeah, we had, like I say, we had to threaten ourselves to get out of the room, but eventually, yeah, they let us go, and we made a point of going straight to the social worker's office as soon as we finished our contact, so we could ask the man himself why he did what he did. Now, I know now why he did what he did, but what I want to tell everybody is, social workers are very conniving when it comes to things like this, and they deliberately try and set you up So you tell them what you've done wrong, not the other way round. Even though what we think what we're doing isn't wrong, to them, they're, pardon my language, but they're pissed off with us because we're fighting back and they don't like it. So the fact of the matter is, he knew that we were protesting, and he knew that we were fighting for my little girl back. So the fact of the matter is they didn't like the fact that they may be wrong, and they didn't like the fact that we're going to fight them on their orders and things like that. So yeah, because we've done that, like I say, they spat the dummy out. Now, our new social worker is very rude, very arrogant, very poncy, very up his own bum, basically. He's very... He infuriates me, in the sense, because he says, he's like, oh, I don't know how to describe it, really. Yeah, he's very smarmy.
Cocky.
And cocky, yeah. He's whenever we're on the phone to him, he's always like, oh, you're not recording this, and I'll say no, even though I am, but that's at my own discretion. It's like, he admits things like, because he knows we're not recording him, he admits things like the fact that he's been hacking into our Facebook, and the fact that he's been hacking into YouTube, and the fact that he's been accessing things that he knows he shouldn't be doing. And then when we throw the law back at him, he then goes, oh yes, but there's a law protecting us. And I was like, but there's never any names mentioned in our videos. Only ourselves, really. So, you know, it's just...
It's a real arrogant personality. This is the arrogance that we sometimes see in social services. They are so cocky because they have a situation of safeguarding where they can get away with almost anything. It attracts these kind of personalities, Mum. And if it wasn't like that, where it was more transparent, where John Hemmings wants to go with this bill, and people were looking, these kind of personalities would be rooted out much earlier. We wouldn't have these problems. It's because it's not transparent, they're getting away with it, Mum.
Yeah, I mean, there was a case where we got a letter from social workers telling us that Evie is, that our daughter, I didn't mean to say that, that our daughter has been found a placement, and we asked a few people to ring in, and we asked a few people to ring in and ask for an explanation from this, because we weren't getting anywhere. And I think because a lot of people did actually ring in and did actually start, it just, in some sense, it sort of like made them a bit nervous, a little bit, thinking, wow, how much support has this person got? And because they got nervous, they handed it over to somebody higher up. Now, this person higher up is now saying, well, we'll do whatever we want. We'll break the law, and we'll do a contempt of court, just because it's like, I don't know, it's just because they can, basically, and that's what needs to change, really. Social workers are very, I don't know how to describe them, really, because there isn't a word to describe people that do the things that they do. You know, they are pure evil. They are pure. They just disgust me. You know.
I mean, I totally agree with you there, Mum. But I guess maybe they're being leaned on. I'm not trying to protect them at all. Maybe social workers have to do a job, and because they're not very empathic or very loving and caring, you know, some of them will do what you described. But anyway, Kev's got a question for you, sweetheart.
Yeah, I think you're right. You hit it in the second bit. They're not very caring, they're not very empathic. I'm going to quote a reference here to someone called Professor Simon Baron-Cohen of Cambridge University, who is an expert in psychology and neuropsychology, and he covers what evil is in scientific terms. And evil is, if you look at the terminologies, it's something that has something missing, and that something missing is empathy. And he goes into that in great detail. He's got a book that he's released called The Science of Evil, which covers all this. And what you're dealing with, Mom, and what everyone's dealing with, is people who are the worst people on the planet that get attracted to power situations like this where they can abuse. They are abusers. They're the real abusers. And because they can abuse, they get off on it. That's why you get the smarmy sort of attitude and everything they're doing that is alien to us. We don't do that as people. We are considerate of each other. We try to get on with each other. And these people hide in these secrecy places where they can prey on people. And that's what we're dealing with, really. And it is absolutely awful. The term evil does fit. It fits appropriately, but there's a scientific explanation of low empathy to psychopathy as well. And it's awful dealing with it for everyone, Mum, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, me and my partner found ourselves shouting at the television last night because I was listening to the news about these cuts that the government's bringing in. And there was a particular man on there with his 2 children and his wife, and he was a social worker, and he's saying things like, oh, you know, we can't afford our mortgage and we can't afford this and we can't afford that because they're going to cut our wages and things like that. And I thought, what complete and utter crap. You know, social workers, they get big bonuses whenever they pick a child and they get it adopted. So if they're never going to be out of money as long as they keep picking children, picking children from innocent families. And that's what needs to stop. We need enough people to come out and tell people their stories because it's just getting out of control now.
Yeah, I'm leaving it over. Yeah, Mum, we have a question from Maggie. Well, it's not much a question, more a comment what you were saying. She was just saying it's big business, isn't it? You know, people have fish and chip shops, they sell fish and chips, they earn money, they make a living, they like the job, and children are a big business. They're selling them just like fish and chips.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is money to be made in children, and I think there's a big pattern that's going around these days where it's not just it's a particular group of children, like beautiful children, smart children, children, blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, red hair, blue eyes, whatever, or even green eyes, whatever. But it's always particularly the beautiful children that they seem to target. Now, without blowing my own trumpet, but I have 3 stunning, beautiful children, and they've got their mitts on 2 of them. And the only reason they haven't got their mitts on the other one is because I placed her with her father for my own personal reasons. And I think that she is going to have a fantastic upbringing now because she won't have social services involved in her life. She might do when she grows older because it might pop up on the system that I'm her mother, but I'm hoping that I've evaded that somehow and I've sort of protected her in some way. Because even back then I was not very young, I was like 19 when I had her, and went through a difficult time, had postnatal depression, and I thought the best place for her was to be away from my depressive state, so I put her with her father. And in doing that now, she's happy, she's growing up, and I have no idea how she is at the moment, because I am too damn scared to pick up the phone to tell her dad and to tell her grandma exactly what's happened recently. And and it's just to have to admit that I've had 2 children taken off me is horrible, because there's always going to be somebody out there that judges you, and that's the most worrying thing at the moment, is the fact that you're just being judged everywhere you go now. And that's the same with my partner and his family. You know, I mean, my daughter's grandma, she's got 2 children, and they're like teenagers, and what if they have children now? Are they going to become involved with them because now we've all been suspected of abusing my little girl? I don't want that for them. I absolutely don't want that for them. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. In fact, actually, I wouldn't even wish it on a social worker. And No, I absolutely wouldn't, because the fact is, right, if they get placed in the same situation as us, they'll finally open their eyes up and they'll realise what's going on. But I wouldn't wish it on anybody what I've been through so far, and I wouldn't wish it, I just wouldn't do it. It's awful, it's horrible to have my children taken off me. It's been the worst experience of my life. I've been through I've been through sheer hell in my life, but the worst part absolutely is definitely having my children taken off me, and that will live with me for the rest of my life. I may as well be scarred for life because they're gone now, and yeah, it's just...
Mum, let me put something in. I'm just going to try and explain something from a psychological point of view to understand what you're dealing with. And it's the same for every family when you're dealing with these people. And I counsel people who've been abused as children as one part of that, some very badly abused. And I also counsel people that get abused as adults, like we might have situations of legal abuse syndrome where they're actually trying to deal with these proceedings and they've got their own children under attack. But let me explain something about abuse and what that emanates in. When we're dealing with someone who's been abused as a child, they've had to deal with all this abuse as a child. And what is rather strange about all of this, that the arguments of next generation abusers aren't actually fully valid at all, because it's the individual that decides what they're going to do and not going to do. And counselling is very, very effective at preventing that sort of thing. So it's only a very small percentage of people where you get multi-generational problems. So it isn't a valid argument to take children of multiple generations. What they're going for is soft targets, but there's a bit more than that. The very people that become social workers of the element they are today, they didn't used to be like this at one time to the same degree. I spent 10 years with social services as a voluntary role, and that wasn't the case in the adult section I was working in all those years ago. But today, we've got predatory social workers. We've got social workers coming from other countries for the money, for quite selfish reasons, some hardly speaking the language in some cases, we've heard in proceedings, and taking children. And part of what we're seeing are people that really the table should be turned over, because these people are the dangers to children. These are the people given secrecy, like we've got in court proceedings, they start to abuse. The very behaviour you're talking of, Mum, is actually abuse, where they're abusing you and they're abusing your children and they're abusing Gran, and they quite clearly are not empathising in any way. Now, that same personality profile, when put in isolation, in secrecy around a child, is the same profile that causes physical and sexual and psychological abuse of children. So what I'm arguing here, the very people that are attracted to this and get off on this are the very danger to children themselves because of their low empathy and why we've got this awful mess. They're abusing the next generation of people that have been harmed before. Do you see where I'm coming from, Mum?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it did cut off a little bit during that, so I only got the beginning and the end of that. But yeah, I get you just on what you're saying. Yeah, they are. I mean, the fact that they're putting children in situations where they go on to be abused is absolutely disgusting. I mean, I'm one of them myself. I was placed in care at 4 years old, and at 9 years old I was adopted, and I was abused physically and sexually there. And I've had to live with that for the rest of my life. Now they think that's a problem now. 15 years down the line, they're saying, no, you're mentally scarred from what happened in your childhood. And I says, but how would you know that? Because you put me in that situation. But I says, but you're not in my head. You don't know what's going on in my head. I said, and I've had 15 years to overcome this abuse. I said, I think that's more than enough. But yeah, they're still insisting that I need at least a year's worth of extensive therapy in order for me to ever have children in the future. And I mean, it's sad. It's a sad case because I'm only 24, but I don't think I ever want children again because I never, ever, ever want to go through this again. And it's heartbreaking.
you know what annoys me? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, do you know what annoys me? I'm just talking to a girl now. Kevin knows her. We obviously won't name her, but in that situation, it's very lucky for them, really, to have their contact given to Granny because it was the best thing to do. And, you know, and this particular person, all I can say is, you know, she's just like you, really. She's nobody different to anybody else. She's not got any problems, but just all of a sudden, you know, she lost her kids. But thank God, her mum was involved, and that's, you know, why we're going to be talking to Granny later on.
Well, just picking up on that, Andy, I've had like extensive talks with Kevin in this past couple of weeks, and it's actually quite nice to say that he thinks I'm quite normal.
You are normal. Everybody's normal.
I've never been described as normal before, so it felt quite different.
I'll tell you what, Mum. Everybody's normal, but everybody in authority needs counselling, I think.
I think you've got the number there, Andrew, actually. They have severe personality disorders. Believe it or not, elitism itself, where you have an arrogant view of the rest of society, avoids the empathy in a focused way of a large group of society. And that's a psychological disorder. And almost everyone we have in the establishment has that psychological profile, if nothing else. And it gets worse than that to low empathy, narcissism, where they're indifferent to people's feelings, to the point of psychopathy that is being really published by the top psychiatrists, psychologists of the world, like Robert D. Hare, who's described 10% of bankers now as being full-blown psychopaths. Little wonder we've got problems, Mum.
So I'm just reading what Andy put. Yeah, that's absolutely fine, Andy. Yeah. All I want to say is thank you a lot for having me on the show, and I shall hand over to my partner in a moment.
I wasn't saying literally. I mean, I was just reminding Kev that that's the procedure.
All right, sorry.
If you want to sort of close with your closing comments.
All I can really say is what I've been saying every show that I've been on, really, is just to remind my children that I love them very much and I will not stop fighting for them, and to encourage other people to do the same, really. And yeah, just speak to people. Don't live in a life of fear. Don't fear these people. You know, get out there, talk to people. I'm more than willing to offer people advice and what have you, but obviously I won't say my name on here, but you can direct them in my direction. But yeah, just keep fighting, keep the faith. Your children will come back to you one day, I can guarantee it, and they will know the truth, as will mine.
Yeah, and expect families like ours at a social services office sometime very soon near you.
Absolutely, yes.
Could I just add something really with Mum on this? I just want to make sure people understand this. I've spent a long period of time over the past 2 weeks or so with the entire family as individuals all together, and I've spent quite a long time talking to Mum. For me as a counsellor, I've been 38 years helping families, and we get people's picture very quickly if there's any dysfunction or anything like that. There is no dysfunction with the family. There is no dysfunction with Mum. She's highly intelligent. There isn't a problem there. She has a good emotional balance. She's not overprotective. She's not underprotective. She's very well aware of where dangers come from and where they're not there. And that balance makes her an ideal mother, and she's a lovely mother, and that's all she wanted to do, really. And I think it's absolutely outrageous that this mother and this family have been breached by social services bad behaviour, and the poor children caught up in this, because I assure you, this is a lovely family. That's just all that I wanted to add, really, Mum.
Thank you very much, Kevin. That's very nice. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'm going to hand over to my partner because he's eager to get on and chat.
Yeah, just mute your mic and then we'll play some music, yeah?
All right, thank you very much for having me again.
Always welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, welcome back. It's the Earth Needs Rebel Show. It's me, Andy Peacher, and Kevin Bull. Please visit our website, freethinkingvoice.org, And you can email the show if you want to be a guest, or if you have a story to tell. It's the F News Rebel Show at freethinkingvoice.tv. And now we have pleasure in welcome tonight Dad. Dad is part of this story. Very sad what's been going on. Dad, hello.
Hi there. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah,
We
can hear
can. Welcome to the show, Dad. You were brilliant last time. Do enlighten us a bit on what has been happening.
Okie dokie. What recent events?
Take it from wherever you like. Bring us up to date from last time. What you've gone through, and including last contact if you can, to let us know what's been happening. Really, we covered the earlier bit on the earlier bit of this, but it sounds an awful situation around that last contact, Dad.
Okay, well, I'll take it from the last contact that we had. Most of you have already heard my partner's side of it and how we were treated like criminals and that. But what I'm going to mention is during the contact, obviously it was a wonderful contact. But at the beginning, when they did make us the offer, do you want to be recorded or not? And it was like, no, absolutely not. Our usual contact worker, but I won't mention her name because in the end the contact worker has been brilliant with us. She's been doing what a social worker should be doing, and that's showing empathy towards us. But she said to us, right, what's going to happen is 2 people are going to enter the room and introduce themselves, and they're going to watch us through the two-way mirror. Now, only one person introduced herself, but no other person. Now, during this contact, I was quite deliberately going near this two-way mirror, and I could hear another male voice in there, and what I could hear was laughing and giggling. I couldn't hear specific words, but there was definitely a male voice, and I could also hear definitely giggling. The contact, like I said earlier, was fantastic. I did make it very clear to the person who was observing me when she was saying, look, you know, if your daughter gets upset or you two get too upset, we're going to have to cut the contact in the benefit of the child, because a goodbye contact, you know, a final contact can be very distressing. I made it very clear to her that what makes you think this is a goodbye contact? I will see her again. She says, well, you know, lots of parents say that. Yeah, I'm not every parent, you know. Yeah, the contact was fantastic. My daughter immediately knew who we were. She was laughing and giggling, and we were just having so much fun with her. And you know, we did painting with her. You know, me and her, we just, because she's crawling now. You know, that's a milestone that we've missed. But she's crawling now. She's out and about. She just doesn't want to sit still. And me and her were crawling on the floor and rolling around, and she was beating me up as any good daughter should do when it comes to their dads. You know, she's got to beat me up. And it was fantastic. But then, you know, coming to the end, you know, we had to say goodbye. But again, I made it very clear this, you know, I'll see her again. And my partner, you know, she got very upset. You know, but I knew I was still being watched, but I said that, look, I'm not being upset because I know I'd see it again. If they knew what we knew, they wouldn't be so confident. I know I'm going to see her again, and that's what they're going to have to realise. Now, here's the magic bit. I did a little bit of recon after the contact. I went outside the room, and I went inside the room where they was observing us, and I found recording equipment. They were recording us against our permission, and I said to the contact worker, I says, they were recording us, and she says, well, they weren't really recording you. I says, well, they either were, they wasn't. I says, that device there, you know, you see, just so you all know, you know, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to electronics, computers and stuff like that, and I know a recording device when I see it. And what they had done is they had recorded us and they unplugged the device that was attached to it. That even though the contact worker was saying to me, no, there wasn't really recording you, what they failed to realise that in front of this device was a timer and it was still running.
Well spotted, Dad.
Sorry?
Well spotted.
Yep.
You're right.
And I mean, I kind of noticed that the contact worker was trying to tell me that they were, but she was kind of protecting herself. In the past few times that we've been with her, she's been a little bit nervous because of what we've been doing in you know, with protests and you know, fighting for our daughter and such and she's been a bit funny about us taking photos during contact, but she's been brilliant because she's let us do it anyway. And you know, at the same time, we've protected her. We've not said anything. You know, these are the exact words that she was saying. They weren't really recording you. Now, the way I see it, the way I read people is, well, yeah, there either were or there wasn't. There's no if or buts. And also, they tried to stop us from going out, and I kept on pressing the intercom, saying, let me out, and then I went to the nearest fire alarm button, and I said, look, you don't let me out, I'm going to press this, and then the magnets will release, and I'll walk out anyway, and then you're going to have a headache of the fire brigade coming in and sorting the alarm out. And the manager of the building let us out, and I said to her, as I walked by, I said, don't do that again, don't imprison me like that. And we were treated like criminals. It was, and I was even asking, you know, why are you keeping us in? Why are we being treated like this? And I couldn't even get a definitive answer. You know, I would have accepted the answer. Oh, we don't want to see what car she's going into and where she's going. We don't want to risk following and stuff like that. But the stupid thing is, we know where she lives anyway, and we wouldn't have done that anyway. But you know, I literally had my finger right near the fire alarm, and I was going to press it because I wouldn't have been contained like that. I'm not a criminal. We don't deserve that kind of treatment at all.
No.
Sorry,
Dan,
go.
In honesty, Dan, the criminal is the person, the behaviour of social services and the way you're treating you. If part of that is not training, part of it's projection, what we know as projection counselling, is because they're the ones that are denying their own responsibility for what they're doing to people, and instead they project on people, like criminals project on the victims, so they keep being critical of you to try and not face their own guilt and responsibility. And that's part of the behaviour in people that behave badly, whether they're criminal or whether or not they're working for the state. And that's why you see the judgmental attitude by people in the state. It's covering up the fact that they don't want to face their own guilt. Does that make sense to you, Dan?
It does make sense, because the way I saw the manager who was observing us, and the way I see the current adoption worker, even though I've never met him, I've only spoken to him on his phone, but the way his attitude is towards me, it is someone that their behaviour is consistent with somebody that is judging a book by its cover. You know, they're only going by the reports that they've read and what they heard, and they're going, oh yeah, hurt their child that did. I'm going to give you a hard time, you disgusting person. I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable because you don't deserve to feel normal. You don't deserve to have proper rights and stuff like that. And from the manager and the current adoption social worker, that's the impression that I get off them, that they are extremely judging our books before they read our cover.
Yes, and I mean, I'm not going to reveal too much to you because I have to be careful, because as a counsellor we're used to handling very sensitive and very difficult information. It's part of years of experience. But I can actually explain to you that people who abuse children have exactly the same profile as the social workers that you're describing, and this comes by living not like your family. And when we talk tomorrow, you'll get an even bigger picture of this. This family are incredibly honest with each other. Therefore, they've got a very secure family unit and openness. I have to. There is a bit of a Yorkie side to this. I like the Yorkies, and when Ma comes on in a bit.
We're proud. We're from Yorkshire. We're very proud of it.
I know, and I do like that side. They're very upfront people, and they speak for themselves, don't they? And that's the nice side of this family. And these people are really the social services and the behaviour of the local authority and the courts that we've got in this. Just cannot possibly conceive the emotional complexity of people that behave like this family. It just misses them entirely. They're very primitive, really, in honesty, and they're just very arrogant in their attitude towards people because they can't face their own personal failings.
Well, they think they're untouchable, don't they?
Oh, they do. Well, they've got the power and they've got the situation where you can't easily hold them accountable. But when I'm dealing in counselling with child abuse, where I'm listening to people that have been abused, and I'm talking about possibly even the satanic end of abuse, it isn't anything to do with Satan, it's to do with absolute control of children. And the actual profile exactly matches in that they project on the child, they hold the child responsible for the abuse that they're doing, and sometimes this involves torture, and I won't go into the details of it, it's not just about sexual abuse. And these profiles of people projecting is the common denominator, and this is low empathy, or focused low empathy towards others, where they're not stepping into their shoes and considering how it feels so that they can actually stand back and treat someone in an awful way, rather like mugging a grandmother and going and mugging the same kind of person over and over again, and coming up with a tale in the head about how they're justified to do this for a living. It doesn't matter how they try and justify it, they're not justified to do it. And it's the same with all forms of abuse. And this is abuse of a family. It really is, Dad. Please carry on. I'm sorry I had to put that in there.
No, don't be sorry. You're absolutely right. The other thing that is true is it's not just the child that gets affected. It's also the family, and it wrecks their good names. It wrecks their careers, and it spreads like a virus. It's not just the parents. It's the grandparents that get affected. It's the grandparents' children that get affected. Even close relatives, aunties and uncles and nephews and nieces, they get affected. And when we live in a world that is so quick to judge and to prejudice, you know, it makes it very difficult for people who are close to you, who are near. I'm going to also go on to. We went to the Louth Child Services. The plan is after the contact we actually thought that this adoption social worker was working at Louth. It turns out he's at Lincoln, and he was actually watching us. We was at our last protest. He was looking at us outside the window. So at least I know where he works now, which is great. So we went to Louth, and went to the reception, and I says, "Hello, can I speak to so and so? And can I speak to so and so?" And they went, "They're not here." And I was like, "Okay, can I speak to you? A supervisor or a management who was in the building?" "They're not here either." And I was like, "So you're telling me there's no management now in the building?" And she was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll speak to a social worker. They're not here. So it's just you in the building then." And what she didn't realise, that while she was telling me this, that there were social workers coming inside the building behind me, and some of them said "Matt Supervisor" on the badges. It wouldn't surprise me. And I made it very blunt, and I says, "Look, here's the thing. I've heard that excuse before. There is somebody in the building who is managing this building. Tell them that I will not leave until I speak to either so-and-so or the other so-and-so, or someone that has a supervisory role. I ain't leaving." And so we're coming back and forth and stuff and blah, blah, blah. One of the things is that she gave me a header letter, a compliments note, that's it, with a written address for the adoptive social worker for us to write to him to ask what we wanted. And it was like, who writes to a social worker? You just call them or you visit them. Who writes? And eventually, she came back with the phone, with a phone, ready to dial to this adoptive social worker, so we could speak to him. And I even asked her, "Is there a private room that we can go into to talk to him?" And she says, "Well, there is no of a room. You know, the phones are different as well. And I said quite jokingly that, well, you know, the phone lines are the same. Why have you got two phone lines running through here or anything like that? And there's a very important question that I asked the receptionist, but I'll get to that later. So I started talking to this social worker, and I asked him quite directly. Well, the first thing I asked him was, "Are you going to hang up on me? Are you going to be polite, like, and be a man and talk to me?" You know. And the weird thing is I asked him who I was. You know, I told him who my name was, and he went, "Who?" And then I went, "So and so's father," and he went, "Who again?" So I had to remind him of who was originally taking the case, and then he remembered. You know, but I told him, you know, I asked him, "Are you going to ham up again or talk to me like a man?" And so I asked him very directly, why wasn't my mother and father invited to the contact? And he went, "Due to recent events." And I was like, "What recent events?" And he says, "Well, I can't really discuss that with you. Only the grandparents." I went, "Excuse me, but I'm so and so's father. If there's if you have something that you need to talk about concerning my daughter, you tell me first, never mind the grandparents." And he says, "Well, the thing is, I'm not going to discuss it with you until I speak to the grandparents." And I was, you know, funny you should say that, they're here. So I passed the phone on to my mother, and she had a chat with him, and asked him the same question: "What recent events are you talking about?" I mean, my mother's going to come on next and discuss that, so I'll skip that bit because she'll explain that, and I'll explain the bit when I was on the phone with him. So, you know, when I got the phone back on him, you know, I said to him, you know, you do realise that when it says that the parents, you know, i.e. me and my partner, may invite the grandparents, why do you feel that you think you're above the law and you can go against court order? And he was like, "Well, you see, it's for the best interest of the child, you know, we didn't want any future harm coming to her." And I went, "What harm are you referring to?" So, you know, my mother and father were out to pull the perpetrators, so what harm do you think they could have done? He says, "Well, you're going to have to elaborate more than that." And he just kept on sidetracking. I mean, there is more to the conversation, but because we're protecting our names and stuff like that, certain things I can't mention yet. But skipping to the social networking and the internet side, I said to him, I says, "Are you aware of the Cyber Terrorism Act?" And he went, "What's that?" I went, "You don't know what the Cyber Terrorism Act is. You must know that, you know, because, you know, you're gaining access to our Facebooks." And he went, "Well, yeah, of course I am." And I went, "Can I just ask Mr. So-and-so, how exactly are you gaining access to people's Facebooks and YouTubes?" And he went, "Well, I just send someone to get in. They just go in for me." And I went, "What do you mean exactly by go in? Because if you're referring to hacking, if you would read the Cyber Terrorism Act, that's against the law. That's cyber terrorism, that's a jailable offence." And he went, "Well, see, the thing is, because I'm a social worker and I'm a supervisor social worker, it doesn't matter, I can do what I want." And I was telling him, "Well, really?" I says, "Well, here's the thing, right? Now, I pulled a bluff on him, and he's probably listening now, and I couldn't really give a crap, but I am in touch with Facebook, so it is going to happen regardless." But I told him that I have written to Facebook, but I kind of told him I did, but a little bit early, you know, preemptive. But, you know, inform them that UK Child Services are using their social networking site as a way to fabricate evidence against families, to put unlawful injunctions upon them and to basically gag them. And I read out this imaginary statement that Facebook would be taking immediate legal action against UK Child Services, and his reply was magical. It was, that's not so, the way I said it as posh as I could, but he says, "Well, that's not something Facebook would really pronounce. And I went, well, of course they wouldn't, you silly man. They're American. They have a completely different way of speaking. But the most important thing of it all is this guy had actually said to me, when he knew that he wasn't being recorded because he was being called from Life Child Services, he actually said to me that he has people that will gain access to other people's profiles. I also told him that for him to actually gain access to somebody's Facebook profile or YouTube or MySpace, that they would have to ask permission from the owner of the social networking sites, i.e. Facebook, MySpace, and also to have a court order to do so. And again, he replied with, well, you see, the thing is, I'm a social worker, I don't need to do anything. Like, if I feel I need to examine your profile, then I'm going to do it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well,
Yeah.
you got that in evidence, yeah?
Well, I don't have it as recorded evidence because the call was coming from Child Services. He might have been recording from the other side, then again, maybe not. And if he was, I'd imagine he would have deleted it.
Can I add something to that, Dan? To explain from other cases of profile, because we've been doing this for years, one of the practices to obtain information from Facebook, and it is quite a discreet practice, is why Facebook's not safe and other social networking, is that there are companies that are sampling all the information from Facebook at Facebook's invitation, and then they're selling it back to social services, so that when people are going in proceedings, they're being presented with evidence from Facebook that's been sourced through third parties making money out of pirating people's private information.
Well, you think that was illegal, though? I mean, I have a disclaimer on anything that I use regarding the internet that basically says any third party who wishes to use my information for whatever degree is unable to do so. And I reminded this gentleman that I have a legal disclaimer on my sites, on any sites, that he can't do it.
It is questionable whether it's legal. The problem is proving exactly how they're doing it, because if you look at Facebook, it's like a rat's nest of different gimmicks on the site, games and things like that give access to people in different ways. Google does as well. And by the time you sort of moving within it, there is people accessing somehow and misusing the information. And this is one of the problems of social networking, the way it's been open for states to examiners in this way. It is there to pirate all the citizens' information all the time. It's absolutely disgusting. And of course, it's misused. But something you pointed out earlier, and obviously Mum did as well, I would just like to say something about recording information. I can assure you, not only do they record these interviews, but if a social worker sits in your house, in her handbag will be a recording device running every single time. If you actually look at them in the cars, they set them going before they come into the house.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it when they park up in front of my kitchen window.
That's what
they
they
take
do.
them out of their bag, and then they push them and put it back in. And naturally, any other person would think, oh, they're just switching off the mobile to be polite. No, it isn't. It's a recording device.
Absolutely. And they don't use it in evidence ever. I've never known a case where they used it in evidence. What they're doing, if you think about it, they can't possibly remember what's being said, so they're using it like note takers.
Dictaphones.
Yeah. So that's why every parent should do the same themselves, like you've tried to do, that you must record everything. And there are opportunities sometimes for you. They don't ever want to disclose that they're doing this, obviously, because it gives the game away. But for you, it's not a problem. For the parent side, you can ask sometimes to present this as evidence before the judge, and you sometimes get permission for that, whether in transcript or in the record.
Are you still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Dad? I think I've dropped out.
I can hear you, Mo.
Yeah, I can hear you. It went blank for a minute.
Yeah. So
I've just been told I've got 10 minutes.
Always
I've got 10
record.
minutes left.
Always record.
Dad, if you want to sort of close now, and then we'll get the music and a jingle on, because I have to do all that, and then we'll get Ma in 10 minutes, yeah?
Well, what I'd like to do, because I've only got 10 minutes left, I would like to actually be subjected to questions from people in the chat. So I'd be willing to answer 2 or 3 questions if anyone puts any on now, and I'll answer them the best I can.
Okay, I'll just do that.
If that's okay. If anyone's got any questions at all, I can try the best of my ability to answer.
Do you see if anyone's got any in chat, Andy?
Yeah, I'm just looking.
I'm sure somebody will have. Come on, people. I'm sure you have a question.
I think part of the problem here, if I explain to you, Dan, is that they only need to hear you to know how credible you are and the honesty. And I think that's coming across in the chat anyway.
Yeah, sorry, Kev.
Not questioning you. You understand that, don't you, Dan?
Just anything that they're curious about or anything. One final point. What ended the conversation with the adopted social worker is I says, look, I want another contact. I want it to still continue, and my mother and father deserve that contact. And his word, this is a direct quote. He says, well, the thing is, you're going to have to accept the fact that she's going to be adopted, and you're not going to see her again. And I will do whatever I can as a social worker to do that. And you know,
got a question when you're ready.
Going to be very disappointed because I will see her again. And he went, well, we'll see. You know, because I'm a social worker, you're not.
Dad, we've got a question from Pippa. Can I lead on that?
Okay.
Pippa's asking, what is the next move from here to Dad legally for you?
Legally, we've filled in some complaints against a particular social worker. I mean, it's through the social services. People will think, what's the point? But if it's not dealt with properly, it goes to an ombudsman service. We are appealing. The appropriate forms have been sent. We're just waiting for a reply, which we should get from tomorrow or this week. And hopefully our appeal will be accepted. And we're going to keep appealing and appealing and appealing. We're going to do whatever we can to delay the adoption process. We're not going to stop, even if it means standing outside our office and screaming, "Get my daughter back."
Yes, and the appeal process isn't straightforward, and I'm not going to get into it because it distracts from the human story. But at this stage, once a placement order has been made and around adoption, you've got to go for permission to appeal each time.
Absolutely.
To get leave of the court, you've got to get leave of the court first.
Yep.
It's very complex indeed. And indeed, social services duck the appeals themselves just by quickly placing the children. Because under the law, UK law, if the child is placed, you can't get leave of the court for a year, which I think I explained to you a while ago to your mum. And one of the techniques that these awful social workers and local authorities do to prevent parents appealing, they immediately run and place the child either with foster adopters or adoptive parents to stop at any appeal. And of course, at the end of the year, most children are adopted anyway, before they get to the second chance to ask for leave of the court. Back to you, Dad.
Well, the most important thing is, and again, it's answering the question, that from 6 months now to 2 years to 16 years, our daughter is going to know that we're going to fight for her by any means necessary. And when she's even if it does take 16 years, where she's at a legal age to start asking questions, she will know as she has grown up that these two people that she barely knows have been fighting for her and trying to win her back. And the idea is that if she gets to an age where she's capable of asking questions and being curious, it's giving her the questions. It's giving her the opportunity to say, why? Why is this happening to me? Who are these people? Why am I here? Why do they say I'm their mum and dad when you're supposed to be my mum and dad? I want to know. You know. Yeah. Is there any more questions before I go?
I don't think we're getting anything else on that at the moment, Dan. I'd just like to add something, if I can, on that.
Yeah.
You're doing the right thing. I'd just like to say this. You've got to, when you're looking at your children and they steal your children from you like this, and the whole thing. One of the important things, and you're thinking about this, is what the children believe later on, because it can be healing for them. And because of that, you're collecting every bit of evidence of the fight and how much you cared for them, aren't you, Dad?
Yeah.
And that's important, because when they're older, they can see that. And no matter what social services have told them, they get a chance to see the real facts. And that is important. The other side of this, we spoke about this earlier on, we really think there is now a global need for a major find your mummy and daddy site and find your grandma or granddad site to find the family members, because we've got so many millions of children that have been stolen to the states of the world. This now is needed so that these children can reconnect as adults.
Yeah. But before I go, I'd like to say what I've been saying for a couple of times is to everyone that's listening, just don't be afraid of the social worker. They're just people. They're just other human beings that have a job title, and when they say that they have no power to remove children, they're kind of half right, but it's what they say to the higher ups that gives them the opportunity and the power to remove your children. They're just people, and there's no reason to be afraid of them, so please don't let them intimidate you, and don't let them think that you have no chance for fighting for your children that have been taken, because you have every right. Because there is one thing that they cannot separate from parent to child, and that is that's blood, that's DNA, and your natural ability to be a parent. They cannot take that away from you. We are human beings, and we have every right to procreate and to pass on our legacy to our future children and grandchildren. That's what we should be doing. So don't let them intimidate you. They're nothing. They're just people. Please don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. And thank you very much for listening to me, everybody. And thank you, Andy Peacher and Kevin Bull, for having me on the show. I'll pass you on to Ma, the grandmother.
Thank you,
and, thank you very much.
Yeah. Really, it's important what you put across today. And it is genocide of the Caring Family Unit by people that don't care. This is awful. Thank you again for what you put in.
Thanks very much, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Make sure you mute your mic. We'll just go into quite a long break, this one, because I've been a naughty boy and I've not done what I was supposed to. So, sorry, Paul the boss. Yeah, thanks for that. criticalmassradio.co.uk. It's a very good conference coming up on November the 24th. Be there or be square, as they say. It's Andy Peacher and Kevin Bull. It's the Earth Rebels every Friday night, 7 till 9, and Sunday, 6 to 8 p.m. in the UK. Don't forget to go to the website. Haven't seen anybody put any comments on yet. Go to freethinkingvoice.org. If you want to be a guest on the show, it's the Earth Needs Rebel Show the Earth Needs... Yeah, that's right. I get mixed up. The Earth Needs Rebel Show at freethinkingvoice.tv. And now we've joined with Ma. Ma's kind of the leader of the pack, the head of the family. Very experienced lady. Ma, hello.
Hello, Ma.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure, honestly. It's been really difficult for the family. I know it hasn't. It must feel very difficult with you being head of the family, being the female head of the family where family is concerned, to try and deal with all this. It must be awful, Ma.
It's been a rough year. Yeah, it's been a really rough year. I think from my part, probably being the old wise owl of the family, I kept probably realising that certain things that we were asked to do seemed to be in breach of human rights. We're working with human rights, diversity, safeguarding issues, and the work that I do. We were being asked to do things that I thought are looking in, unlocking files that have been long since buried and forgotten about, and they just seem to be able to jump in and have a party with our lives, basically. I sometimes sit and imagine that they're just all sat there with a Costa coffees and the big fat muffins and saying, right, which family should we screw with this morning? It seems that they've got absolute power hiding behind the safeguarding. scenario that that's what they're doing, but I work in safeguarding, and if I was to do a fraction, I mean, albeit on the other end of life, because I look after very old people, but that's not the point. If I was to do a fraction of what they did, I write care notes on a night. I have to be meticulously accurate. Any time that there's something that's said, done, I've physically put my hands on people to care for them, I have to document that, and it has to be true. And yet I've seen documents that have been ripped by these imbeciles that work for child services, and I honestly think they must throw a load of suggestions into a hat and pull it out and then think, oh, we'll add that to this family's file because that sounds good. So, and then on top of that, we have to still function as a family. We have to have other children to take care of, people that go to school. I think I've missed 2 or 3 open evenings at school because I've just simply forgotten. And it's, so you've got to keep ploughing on, thinking that you're going in the direction that's what's going on with the case, and think, right, we've got to do this, that and the other, only for them just to change tack. So even, it's all right in saying you're uncooperative, even when you've been cooperating with these people, it's like, oh no, we can't have that because it's making them look good. So let's just throw some spanner into the works and see how they react to that. So, and the final contact last week was a real spanner in our works that was completely uncalled for, what they did.
Do take us through this, Ma, because it is awful. I know we've got a bit from Mum and we've got a little bit more from Dad, but he left it wide open for you to fill us in on this, so please go ahead.
Well, after going through a year of listening to child services just make things up and talk a load of rubbish and crap in the courthouse, shining glimmer of light, if you like, is that we're going to at least get to see her. And with her coming up to almost a year now, I thought she's bound to have memories, so I was looking forward to giving her cuddles, singing songs that we've always sang with her, just trying to refamiliarise the songs with her. But as you know, there has been campaigns, protests, conventions, some of which I've attended, some of which I haven't. Some of the husbands gone on to try and get the message across that what they're doing is wrong, it's perfectly within his rights. And then I tell you what, nobody else discussed actually. I think I just ought to throw this in there. I'm not sure if people are aware, but they do actually take photographs in the contact centre. Their workers do it. Rather mysteriously, 2-3 weeks ago, one of these flashcards went missing. And on this flashcard was a shed load of photos of our granddaughter, and I think maybe some of another child, I don't know. And my son got a phone call, and he was questioned over this. And I thought, you take it out, it's not good enough that you say no and batter your little baby, now we're taking stealing stuff. But then, within the same week, we suddenly was told, you've got to prepare yourself. We found ourselves. They actually said that my granddaughter herself had found a family, which I think is amazing for an 11-month-old child, but there you go. And then I thought, well, isn't that a coincidence that suddenly the photographs, which were designed to be put on a disc or be sent email, whichever the way they do it, for the birth families, have suddenly gone missing. And then, hey-ho, we've got a birth family. So I actually spoke to one of the adoption workers and said, did those photographs go to the adopted family? Because, you were quick to accuse my son of stealing these, but in the same week, these went missing, and an adopted family turns up. So I actually think that's what they've done. I think they've even taken photos that of contact with Mum and Dad, and I just think that they've picked the best out to show the birth family. So I can't even think, is there a breach of human rights there? And my son and his partner didn't give permission for photographs to be sent anywhere else. So is that something else they've done? So, we waited for this letter from the adoption workers to say that, you know, this is the time of the contact and everything, and it arrived at my son and his partner's home, and our name wasn't on it. So I rung her. I rung the worker at the time and said, you know, why isn't it on? And she said, you're not part of the contact. I said, yes, we are. There's illegal. We've got a document here to say that we are. She said, oh, well, I have to go look in the files and see that document. I said, why, don't you know? Are you not handling this case? Don't you know the details about this child? And she was a bit evasive, and then the next thing we knew, we were passed on to some other person, which is the very impolite, nasty one that we have been dealing with. So I asked him, and he says that they'd had a meeting, and they had decided that we couldn't go. And I said, for what reason? They said, oh, well, you know, we're not really privy to say that. I said, yes, you are. You're talking about me, so you can tell me why me and my husband cannot see our granddaughter. And he said something about that we'd been recording phone calls and this, that and the other. I said, I'm perfectly within my legal rights to do that, seeing as, you know, you guys are lying all the time. I need a recording every time I speak to you because you make things up as you go along. He said what I was doing was illegal. I told him it wasn't, and I said, but, you know, we've got permission from the parents to see our granddaughter during contact, and that's what we're going to do. And he says, well, you can't. I said, well, yes, I can, because I've got it in black and white. So we turned up on contact day. We decided to go in a little bit later because it was, from their point of view, final contact, and I felt that Mum and Dad should have a little bit of time on their own, and we were going to go in 15 minutes late and then maybe come out a few minutes early so that Mum and Dad could have a final goodbye with her. And when we got there, armed with toys, they wouldn't let us in. And I showed the manager the paperwork, took it down, and I showed it in black and white. We had both had his driver's licences on us in case they needed proof of who we were, and she wouldn't let us in. In fairness to the manager, I have to say she must have rung back the person at Child Services about 3 or 4 times to get confirmation. Stand us down and said, this is you're breaking a legal document which has been sanctioned. We can go in. Parents have invited us. Eventually she said, you know, if you don't leave, we're going to have to call the police. I said, on what grounds? We're not doing anything. She says, because I'm asking you to leave. And I said, but why would you want to call the police? And she said, well, because you won't leave. So we phoned the police. We told the police what had happened, that we'd got a court order in our hand that gave us permission to gain entry to see our granddaughter. And they said it was a civil matter and they couldn't deal with it. So we stayed in the car park. I absolutely sobbed for 2 hours because she was at the other side of the wall and I couldn't see her, I couldn't hear her. In fact, I sat with my door open for a while to see if I could, there was a window open, I could hear her laughing or anything, but I couldn't. Then the manager come back out again and said, you know, you really have to leave. And I said, we've left the building. She said, you know, you need to leave the car park, otherwise we're going to have to call the police. I said, well, you've made markers in the car park, it's private land, so you're inviting people to park there, so you haven't really got any grounds to get us to move. She said, I will, and I will call the police. So I said, well, fine, then do that. I said, but let me tell you what will happen. The very most that they will be able to charge us with is a fray. I will plead not guilty to that, and then in an open court, in a magistrate's court of law, where you've got members of the public and reporters, I will sing the Hallelujah chorus of why I was there, the purpose of the visit, what Child Services are doing. I said, and I will name names. Anyway, she said the police arrived, but they didn't come, and we're still waiting to hear from them. Whether they're going to follow it up, I've no idea. And then they come out, told us that they'd been in prison, they were trapped like prisoners, having people, and they said that in the two-way mirror where they was recording them, despite the fact that explicitly said they didn't want them to, they could hear them sniggering and giggling in the observation room, which I found totally unprofessional, as soon as it was the final contact. They went, as Dad has just said, we went to allow social services to confront this fiend that I was speaking to, and the most we could do was get to speak to him on the phone. The manager of the contact centre actually said that she'd been told that the reason why they didn't want us in is because I'd been giving out leaflets. And I said, well, you know, I sort of picked it up, but they can see the children. I said, that's not against the law. When I mentioned that to the adoption worker, he denied having a conversation regarding that. So, and then he said that they were perfectly within the rights to make the decision under the safeguarding of Evie. I said, safeguarding? He said, yes, we've got to keep them safe. I said, well, you've just shot yourself in the foot. I said, because according to the courts, they deemed that me and my husband was perfectly innocent and hadn't caused the injuries to our granddaughter. Yet the two people that you think have caused the injuries to the granddaughter, you've allowed to go in. So I said, so how was that safeguarding? I said, so you've how?
Mum,
It's
Yes.
okay.
to help you a little bit with this, if I can just point out a couple of things. First of all, you were completely legal to record the telephone calls under the Telecommunications Act in the UK. Most of the world is the same, providing one party is giving permission, even to yourself, you can record it. They could record you in the same way. So that wasn't in any way unlawful. And as far as your contact is concerned, the details given by Mum that this was a may situation for the parents may allow effectively the grandparents to have a final contact. That is because of a couple of reasons. They can't put will because that would be enforce an order, and that's why it's may. It's not optional to social services, and it's may because of the parents, because they have parental responsibility at this point.
Yeah.
The grandparents don't. So social services have ducked and dived through the court order to abuse you as a family here when it was all completely unnecessary. And it is the perverse nature of these low empathy, narcissistic and psychopathic personalities that are the most damaging personalities in society, which is why in the US we've got 80% of prisoners have been in care in the prison system because of just coming into contact with these kind of animals. And that's what we're dealing with here. Let's be clear about this. It's disgusting behaviour. They don't have moral values because moral values require empathy to work them out. So they're clueless. I think you know where I'm coming from, Mum.
But prisoners get tracked better than parents do. Prisoners have got more rights than parents do.
I think you're right. That's the difference between safeguarding and the safeguarding pulls the carpet completely from under society, and that's where the abusers get in. Prisoners do suffer to a great degree once they hit behind things, but generally you've got more chance of exercising your rights as a prisoner before ECHR or something like that than often parents have around children, because you're walled from exercising your rights over your child. Once they make certain orders, you can't take actions to protect your children. So it's awful, isn't it?
There's something very wrong with the system when complete strangers can come in and make decisions over children that have got nothing to do with them. What has happened to the family unit? What has happened to somebody, somebody comes down and complains about little Johnny throwing stones at a thing. A dad can stand up and say, yeah, well, very sorry, I will replace it. Big argument, but you shout at my son again. I've got a problem with that. It seems that all rights now, when the family's concerned, and nobody's safe. Nobody is safe, as we found out ourselves. From the ordinary folks. If you find yourself, no matter what profession you're in, doctors, nurses, MPs, whatever, once you're in a vulnerable situation, you can be targeted. So, I think there's something very wrong when people blame at human rights. And this isn't a hate campaign to social services, is it? Heck, 4 children died at the hands of the family while our granddaughter was in care. There are children out there keeping foster parents. Foster places are filled with children that shouldn't be there. while there is, children that are desperately in need of help that are still outside getting hurt and abused on a daily basis because they're not interested in that case. It's hard work, isn't it?
Well, it's not just that. You're absolutely right. The baby P's, unfortunately, sadly, this world are not adoptable because they're so damaged that the local authorities get litigated afterwards for not informing them or whatever. So they're just looking for unharmed children. So they're stealing them from good parents under the allegations of potential risk. Exactly like your case. It's a prime example of this, and that's what's going on. I think we may be running into the final time, Andrew. I don't know if you can count me in on this, but I'd like Mum to Martha say a little bit on the time out. How much time have we got left?
30 seconds.
Well, sorry about this. We're going to have you on again if you would come on again. Would you like to take us out with any final comments in the last 30 seconds or so?
Just to keep listening to the Critical Mass Radio and the other things that Andy's linked to, that there'll be something, hopefully very soon, where that people can have a bolt hole and they can come and get the advice, come and have a safe place where they can get practical advice on how to keep their children safe from the system. And thank you very much for having us on. And
thanks, Ma.
Thank you very much, Ma. Really tremendous. I'm sorry to hear about all this, and we'll give you support after the show, as you know. We're here for you. So do keep in touch with us so we can do that.
I will do, yeah. Thank you.
And that's the same with me and Kevin. As long as the Earth Needs Rebels and Critical Mass Radio, Orion Talk Radio, Lightwaves Radio, and so on, TNS and TCT is available for people with free thinking. We'll always be here for you guys. So I'll let you go now. Have a good weekend. What's left of it, have a good week. See you Friday night, 7 to 9. And you've been listening to the Earth News Rebel Show. Go to our website, freethinkingvoice.org, with Andy Peacher and Kevin Paul. Good night and God bless.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now it's our turn.